Most people have no idea whatsoever, but NASA was really turned into a space agency by this former Yahtzee, this science fiction writer, this cartoonist, and this other former Yahtzee. True story.
And funny enough, not a true story. The aviation sector of the US Army Signal Corps was started in 1914, and then 1915 they started NACA, the National Administration Committee for Aeronautics, I think it was called, NACA. That was the birth of NASA. Then at the end of the Second World War, when they got hold of these brilliant German minds, they turned it into NASA. Now, it is terrible that these people got to live free and happy lives after being involved in such atrocities. But when the name of the game is keeping your citizens safe by having technology that's far in advance of your opposition, of course that's what they did. I wouldn't go as far as to say fair enough or that I would make those decisions, but it is what it is. That's what they did. But by no means did those four guys start NASA. It was commissioned by a president. I can't remember if it was Roosevelt or Eisenhower. I'm not that up on American presidential history, but it was commissioned by him. I daren't say when advisors came to him and said, dude, we've got access to these brains, right? Let's build some rockets. And so, of course, you would create a division of the government, so to speak, to control the use and the development of that stuff. Okay, it makes perfect sense. There's nothing freaky about it.
You see, the US intelligence agency community didn't want the Soviets to get a hold of these Yahtzee scientists. And here they are, being prepared to come into America and work for American agencies and American companies. True story.
Yeah, now that part is a true story. Glad it wasn't me who had to make those decisions at the time, because to think that those people are going to suffer no consequences for that part of history that they're involved in, it's pretty terrible. When your choice is do the right thing and let this technology fall into the hands of the enemy, you know which decision you have to make. And that's why we have ruthless people running our military and stuff, because they make the tough decisions. It is what it is. There's no conspiracy behind that. There are great minds on the enemy team, and we took them after we won the war. And thank you, America. I think the whole world's probably in a debt to you for getting that technology. Because if the Soviets had got it, we might all be speaking Russian. I don't know. But there's no conspiracy there. It makes perfect sense.
A quick glance into Mr. Heinz Haber here will demonstrate that, of course, he was quite the supporter of Mr. Schmittler and the Third Reich, as it's known, and that, of course, he came over in Operation Paperclip. Yep.
Yeah, well, to me, this makes perfect sense. Not too many Germans around that spoke out against Schmittler. So I don't think you can use it as a reliable belief of theirs that it's documented that they supported that guy, because of course they did. You know what the consequences would have been if they were in sort of any level of government, any level of sort of political power. They had to agree, or they were no more. So I don't think that's fair to say.
Here we have the gravestone of Werner von Braun, Psalms 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Why is the creator of NASA talking about firmament?
Okay, so yeah, the first time the word firmament was ever used is in the Bible. So the interpretation can be open. I think heaven is what it's considered to mean. So yeah, space. So space. That was it. If a guy who's absolutely fascinated with space, hence the line of work he ended up in, that makes perfect sense. Another thing I would note, that by the time they chiseled that into his gravestone, he was dead. He didn't put it on his gravestone. So other people, just saying.
Facts are facts, people. NASA was not a space agency before these people got involved. Okay? Yahtzee, science fiction writer, cartoonist, Yahtzee. True story. Rio out.
Now, what you're saying is ultimately is true. Yeah, that NASA wasn't the space agency it is now. Before those guys were there, it wasn't that they were over there and the war ended and they said, "Let's go to America and start this." Let's start NASA, which is Hebrew for deception. Let's go over there and do all this nasty stuff. Okay, what it was your American military, right, caught these guys and said, you will come over here and do this for us. You will invent these rockets, right? And you will do what you're told, right? That's the truth of it. So the details that you're including are correct, but the inference you're putting on it, nothing like the truth. Sorry, mate.